So please put these on.
You have to put it over your hair, Dad.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Okay.
No, you don't. You put.
I wonder if it's going to touch your hair.
This is a show I'm sure you've heard about in some capacity, whether it's you've actually seen it, or you just recognize some quotes from it, or someone's recommended it to you at some point. I'm sure you've heard about it in some way, because this is one of the most beloved sitcoms of the past 5 to 10 years. Everybody that watches it likes it, and I just got done watching it, and I'll say I really liked it. This is a pretty straightforward sitcom, though, just to get that clear. What it is just a rich family who gets stripped of all of their possessions and are forced to live in a tiny town called Schitts Creek in a motel. They apparently own this town, and shenanigans ensue. It's a pretty straightforward sitcom, but what sets it apart, and why I think so many people have attached themselves to it, me included, is two things. Number one is the length. This is 6 seasons, 80 episodes, and that may sound like a lot compared to a 2-season canceled show on Netflix, but it's actually the perfect length for what it is. So often there are shows that go on way too long, and they become these almost parodies of themselves. I mean, you look at Simpsons, and Simpsons has been going since 1989. There's like 750 episodes in that show.
He must have a weakness.
Ah, beer. My one weakness. My Achilles heel, if you will.
And at a certain point, you just kind of have to be done. And what's great about Schitts Creek is that it knows when to be done, and it doesn't overstay its welcome.
And then we all said goodbye, and I cried for 2 days.
I feel like it's gonna come out even worse when like
We're supposed
April
to go
and
back to
March
work,
comes around,
yeah.
because we always have this like goodbye and then we come back, and this time it's like goodbye and nobody's coming back.
And this leads to reason number 2 why I think this show sets itself apart from so many other sitcoms in this vein. And that's the characters. In so many sitcoms, you have these incredibly trite, stereotypical characters that you can just throw into wacky situations. And the writers think that that's enough to make up for lack of depth. And in some cases, that's fine. There's so many sitcoms where that doesn't really matter that much. You have these characters in these increasingly crazy situations, and the writers just have to keep coming up with these crazy situations to keep the viewers happy, and that's okay as long as you can handle that. But what this show has is both interesting, well-developing characters and these weird, wacky situations that the writers put them into.
This glove is brown. My shoes are black. What exactly are we doing here?
And it's not like the situations are these over-the-top things either, because they don't have to be. When you have interesting characters, you don't have to have crazy situations. And when you have crazy situations, you don't have to have interesting characters. But this manages to have both in a way that really works. But specifically with the characters. The characters, over the first season to season 6, develop in ways that I didn't expect, that were completely subverted expectations, and were incredibly satisfying and interesting. Outside of the first maybe season and a half, which kind of struggles to find its footing and puts in characters that don't really do much for the show, it does a great job of handling who these people are, knowing who they are, and developing them in ways that worked and was actually very satisfying. One of my favorite characters was Alexis. She starts off the show as this pretty girl, social media inspired person who just wants to get with the hot, muscly guy. And she turns into someone that's incredibly driven, goal-oriented, knows what she wants, and fights for that.
My eyes are brown. I am basically sample size. And one time I escaped from a Thai drug lord's car trunk by bribing him with sex.
Right idea, honey, but you know what? It's got to be more challenging for everybody in the room.
Aqua.
You did what?
And everybody in the main family I really enjoyed. Of course, Alexis is, I think, my favorite in the entire show, but I really liked Eugene Levy's character. I really liked Moira, who is someone that I found kind of off-putting at the start, and then she turned into, someone that I really enjoyed. And then, of course, David is probably my second favorite character behind Alexis. I really liked who he started as to who he became. Everyone in this family kind of starts in the same spot. They're all like these really vain, egotistical, stuck-up people who are too good to be in this situation, even though they're forced to be there. They have no options. but they're still too good for it, which is another very typical sitcom type of setup. But usually it doesn't transform into anything, but these characters all grow into completely distinct individuals who all have their own things going on, and it was wonderful to see. But David specifically is one that I think they do a lot with, and it's not just because it's played by Dan Levy, who is Eugene Levy's son, who created the show and writes the show, but it's what David kind of represents to the show and outside of the show that I think is incredibly interesting and really nice. I mean, you look at this character who's this bisexual character, and it's never made mention of, really. They don't bring that much attention to it. His family already appreciates him for who he is and accepts him, and everyone around him does as well. They don't mine out easy drama with that character, which would be so easy to do. There are so many sitcoms or movies or whatever that take these stereotypical gay or LGBTQ characters and put them in situations that are like funny, but not really. They're like, oh, we're gonna put them in this situation where people don't accept them and it's gonna be awkward and hilarious because of that. But this show never really does that, and I really appreciated that approach, and I think that's one reason why so many people connect to this character, because he is just unapologetically who he is, and his family is unapologetically who they are, and accepting of that. And it was so nice.
I love our relationship. I love it when you order me pizza. I love it when you use words like inventory. I even love those stupid rubber things you put on your fingers because you think they flip the pages faster. They don't flip the pages faster. They don't flip the pages faster.
And all of this really is just me praising the writers, to be straightforward. The writers of this, I think, nailed this show. Absolutely nailed it. At a certain point, it is just consistently great. And that's a huge credit to the writers. It's incredibly difficult to maintain this level of greatness for as long as it does. I mean, Arrested Development is one of my favorite shows, and it's a season shorter, and 2 seasons of that are absolute train wrecks.
Are finally getting the award they think they deserve.
Family of the Month. Yeah, are you motherfucking Family of the motherfucking year?
Not this time, no.
But I think the biggest credit I can give to the writers is that they don't force the characters into anything that is unnatural. And that's so difficult to do. There are so many examples of shows, movies, seasons of TV or otherwise that want their characters to go to a certain place or end in a certain place, and they just force them to be there, and it never works. Just look at Game of Thrones for an example of that.
Talk to me about your reaction when you read the script for your final episode.
I was really...
But Schitts Creek really takes its time to make sure the characters start in a place they want them to start and end in the place they want them to start and build to that. It seems like they took an incredible amount of time planning out what these characters were, who they were, and who they wanted them to become in a way that worked organically. And they built to that in ways that doesn't call attention to itself. That is incredibly impressive to me. There are so many things about this that I love. There are so many things that work incredibly well about this show. And if you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix. You could just go watch the entire thing right now if you wanted to. I mean, it's not exactly bingeable because it's 6 seasons, but they're all 20 minutes. You can watch like half the season in a day and then finish it the next day. And it is really worth your time. I would highly recommend it, to be honest. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I watched it.